Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Stocks are selling off today, okay? The S&P is down about 0.7%. Small caps are down almost 1%. 10-year treasury yields are falling 4 basis points. The odds of Fed rate cuts are moving higher. A lot of very weird things going on today. And for a lot of you guys, you're probably confused to why markets are selling off at all today. Like, the bad news is kind of hard to find. There's only a couple pieces of what you would call quote unquote bad news, but I actually think it's a little bit deeper than that. And we'll get into it here in this video. Ladies and gentlemen, in the meantime, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Check out that link down below in the description of this video for the trading community where we are going out and finding small cap AI stocks before everyone else does. What does this mean? Well, it opens us up to exponential returns. Being first to something is much better than being late to something. For an example, I bought the Palantir IPO at $10. Well, damn. Okay, that's like a 17x from here. If you bought Palantir at $100, still what most people would call a really good price, you're up like, what, 70%? Two different boats, two different returns, two different outcomes. If you want to be first in some of these major AI stocks, come check out that link down below in the description of this video. Although I cannot guarantee that you will make money, anything can happen. We could have a depression. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial planner. I do not give financial advice. I share what I am doing in my portfolio, and I share what I view as opportunities. I provide due diligence. I share my positions. I am fully invested in these names. You may lose money. It's important that you understand what you are investing in, and you make those ultimate choices for yourself. Disclaimer out the way, I would like you to come join us if you have not done so already. Link down below in the description of this video. But with that said, on to today's episode. On the day today, the Dow is actually green, up 0.02%, barely. It's like a break-even day. S&P is down 0.5%. NASDAQ down 1.27%. And the Russell 2000 is down 0.78%. The VIX is up 3.34% today. There's not really any one piece of news that looks to be causing this, okay? I'll get into what I think is causing this in just a moment, but the long story short version is we have the FOMC minutes tomorrow. We have Walmart earnings Thursday morning, and we have Jerome Powell at Jackson Hole on Friday. Stocks are up a lot from the lows in April. A lot of funds may be trying to hedge portfolios. When there's a lot of events, there's a lot of what's called event risk. And although I'm expecting things to go well, if you're a hedge fund or institution, you don't have that luxury of most of the time just saying, hey, I think things are going to be fine, I'm not going to hedge. A lot of hedging is done by algorithms, right? A lot of computers. 80% of trading volume on any given day for any stock or index is typically done by computers. So the computers are saying there's more risk, elevated volatility potential this week because of the events we have. We should sell stocks now because stocks are down. Now, if markets were down 20% heading into these events and we had the same setup that we have today, you'd probably see markets going up a lot today just because, right? The event risk was skewed to the positive. Wall Street today clearly is saying the event risk is skewed towards the downside. Days like today, though, are actually positive and necessary. Why? Because it shows you we're not close to a bubble, as some people have said. This market is not too overextended. We can still have a random red day for not a whole lot of a reason. That doesn't happen in bubbly markets. That doesn't happen if people are super bullish. So today actually reaffirms my bull thesis that we still have so many bears out there, so much hedging that needs to be done because of what could happen on certain events. There's likely a lot more room to go up to the upside. Okay. That's a big takeaway. The VIX today is up 3.34%. What's actually fascinating about today, though, even though we're getting this risk off kind of sell off, the NASDAQ, Russell, and let me be clear, there is some pieces of news that you could say, okay, that's not great. We'll get into that in just a moment. That could be, having some kind of a roll in today. 10-year treasury yields are down about 4 basis points. So yields are not rising today. They're actually falling, which typically leads to an outperformance of small caps. Oil is down 1.80% today. Okay. Gold is down 0.5% today. Cryptos, anywhere from, down 2.5% on Bitcoin to Ethereum, down about 4.5%. This actually looks very healthy to me. The last thing you want is a market that goes straight up, because there's a saying, right? Stocks tend to take the escalator up and the elevator down. You want to avoid the elevator down. If stocks just keep going up, eventually you're going to get the elevator down. If stocks can have these red days along the way, it makes for a healthier market, a market that can be sustainable with the kind of gains that I'm expecting. White House Press Secretary Leavitt cites Trump's interest in reshoring manufacturing. White House Press Secretary Leavitt on Intel says Lutnick is ironing out the details of a deal. You also had SoftBank that invested about 2% of the company. They essentially bought 2% of the company, which last I checked, Intel was like a $200 billion company. So yeah, like $4 billion-ish they put into Intel. Putin has asked China to be a guarantor for agreement with America and Europeans per Axios. Leavitt says Trump is working to make a bilateral meeting happen. Leavitt says Trump expects Putin and Zelensky meeting to happen. The White House says air support is an option or possibility. And the White House says accommodations for Zelensky-Putin meeting are underway. Now, there's again still a chance that maybe Putin doesn't want peace. Like, I think Trump and Putin are on the same page. I think Trump thinks what Putin is offering is good enough to end the war. Okay. So from that perspective, you shouldn't be getting any tariffs put on China or on other countries that buy Russian oil. But if there were to be some kind of fallout and Putin were to retrench on that, there's still the chance that you could get retaliation on, Russia's trading partners, like tariffs on China. That is a risk the markets will contend with until a deal is actually signed and the war is over with. But eventually, it will be a de-risking catalyst once and for all. The White House says U.S. boots will not be on the ground. And Putin agreed to start next stage of peace talks with Rubio, Vance, and Witkoff coordinating with Ukraine. Now, here was some news today that maybe sent some of big tech lower. It says Meta to downsize AI division. Some executives expected to leave. Yeah, I don't believe this headline, okay? Or not in the way that it's being shared, okay? Meta was just poaching top tier AI, executives from other companies, right? Meta is not going to give up or slow down on the AI race. That would be way too risky for Meta to do, okay? Fine-tuning their operations, though, could happen. But not a slowdown. There's a difference there. You can actually see today a lot of the pain is in some of your larger cap companies. Meta's down 2%, Microsoft down 1%, Google down over 1%, Nvidia's down 3%, Amazon down about 1.5%. So these, Mag 7 names, if you will, are contributing to the downside that we are seeing today. Actually, quite a large clip compared to what we're used to. Normally, it's like the Mag 7 is helping to hold up the markets. Not today, which again I think is likely a positive sign because Mag 7 has done so well recently and virtually all of these stocks are at all-time highs or very close to it. To see a little bit of risk off before major risk catalyst this week in the areas that have done the best, again, not super shocking and looks healthy to me. Now, Switzerland offers Putin immunity and is ready to host peace talks. Business Insider reports today that U.S. bankruptcies surge past 2020 pandemic levels. Fed Bowman also spoke today, but did not really say anything new or of substance today. Like, it was a lot of the same old, and Fed Bowman spoke today. We know Fed Bowman is team rate cuts. We did not get any new information out of Bowman. Now, if we take a look at what markets are pricing in for Fed rate cuts in September, the odds are actually going up a little bit today from 82.9% yesterday to 83.4% odds of a cut September. October 29th, the odds are going up as well from 44% chance of a cut again in October now to 48%, now being priced in again for October. And December, the odds are going up a little bit for a third rate cut. Yesterday, the probability was 31.2%. Today, it is 34.8%. Lutnick says today Nvidia's CEO is fantastic. Lutnick says, sure, Nvidia's CEO is pitching Trump all the time. Lutnick says, we're weeks away for the Japan and Korea deal. Lutnick says, we must handle the Chinese risk. Lutnick says, we cannot rely on Taiwan to make our chips. And Lutnick says, we are hopeful that Intel can make us a participant in the chip space. Trump says, there will be some form of security, but it can't be NATO. Trump on the war in Ukraine says he's always thought that Ukraine was a buffer between Russia and Europe. Trump on possible U.S. security guarantees says possibly by air. Trump says Russia is a powerful military nation. Trump says Ukraine is going to get a lot of land. And Trump says it's possible Putin doesn't want to make a deal. I think this was one of the worst headlines today because if Trump says Putin doesn't want to make a deal, then tariffs potentially could go on China again. I think that's really bad for like US-China trade talks, okay? That wouldn't be great at all. And that is a risk that markets are digesting today. And Trump says that France, Germany, and the UK want boots on the ground in Ukraine. And Trump on the war in Ukraine says Ukraine should not have asked to be in NATO. Trump says Zelensky must show flexibility. Trump says Putin and Zelensky are getting along a little bit better. Trump says, I hope Putin will be good, if not a rough situation. Besant says Fed rate cuts could facilitate a pickup in home building, which could keep prices down 1 to 2 years down the line. U.S. Treasury Secretary Besant says much of PPI inflation was investment services. Besant says that Nvidia will require a license for any new China chip. One of the other negative headlines today was from Besant that says the U.S. plans to up tariffs on India over Russian oil buying. So you can see today there's obviously some bad headlines, but to get the risk off kind of selling you're seeing today is mixing some of those bad headlines with some of the, risk of event risk, Walmart earnings, FOMC minutes, Jerome Powell on Friday. That's what seems to be the cause of most of this. In my view, it's probably not a super headline-driven move, even though there was a couple of negative headlines. That was kind of the icing on the cake. But again, as I've said in this video, I actually think that is a positive thing to see markets that are not complacent, that they can take some downside if it's warranted, right? The last thing you want is a market that keeps going up despite bad news and then finally takes that elevator lower in a huge way, right? That's the last thing you want to see. So what today shows me is there's a lot of people that are still nervous, that are underpositioned in markets that, are going to inevitably be buyers again. Ladies and gentlemen, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Check out that link down below in the description of this video for the trading community as well. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next episode.